Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is a bit of a different one. It's a bit of a vlog style video. As you can see, the Molyneux is behind me. I'm well aware it does look like a building site, or God knows what it looks like on the Steve Bull, but it's been a pretty mad 24 hours. The news about Strand Larsen's contract has been pretty interesting, which I think we'll speak about in this video, of course. And the main biggest point related to Wolves somewhat is Nuno Espírito Santo, of course, leaving Nottingham Forest last night around midnight. The news broke, so pretty crazy all in all, really. I think it's best we start with Strand Larsen because that's current and relevant to, to Wolves more than Nuno, perhaps. So yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting one with Strand Larsen. Obviously, John Percy reported. Obviously, John Percy very, very reliable. John Percy reported that Strand Larsen is set to extend his deal or sign a new deal at Wolves, which is a bit of a confusing one, given the fact that, he publicly made it clear that he would be open to leaving, which, to be fair, I didn't read that as actively that he wants to leave. I just read it as, it's a good opportunity for a player to further his career, to play for a club that is in Champions League football. And generally, if you ask most players, I say that, Newcastle have been rejected a hell of a lot in the summer, but if you were to ask most players where they'd like to go in England, Newcastle's probably on the list in terms of the top 5 or 6 teams, not in terms of the top 4, I'm well aware, but maybe in that sort of clutch of, your Villas, your Newcastles, your Tottenhams to an extent, really. So, I didn't really take it as he wanted to actively go. I know some people did, and I understand the frustration completely, but I didn't really take it as that. So yeah, it seems like he's going to be extending his deal. Obviously for him, he will want a pay rise, given the fact that Wolves did slap pretty much a £70 million price tag on his head. So of course for him to stay at the club, he's got to need that incentive. His agent, he'll be getting a fair whack, and to be fair, he's done his job right if it means that he's going to be getting more money and Larsen's going to be getting more money, which is the main thing. Obviously, the issue we've seen in the past at Wolves is the fact that they haven't given the players that incentive to stay because the wages simply aren't there, or the willingness to pay those wages whatsoever isn't really there when it comes to negotiations. So I think in terms of that, I think it makes complete sense for Wolves to try and extend Larsen's deal. Also, giving him a longer term on his contract, I believe, as well, which means ultimately his value goes up. Obviously, if he doesn't have a good season this season, then obviously that is, it can be questioned, but I do think he'll have a good season. He scored twice already, obviously, albeit in one game, but I think he'll be absolutely fine all season. Then I think in terms of, I was quite surprised from a Jeff Shea angle, really, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, like I've said, players in the past haven't been paid what they're worth and have left, or players in the past haven't really wanted to stay, given the fact that, like I said, some big clubs have come in for them, or the money's been bigger. For example, Ruben obviously would have loved to have stayed at Wolves, but for his family, for his future, for his career, it made sense at the time to go to Saudi. And to be fair, it does for most players. I mean, even like to Josh Brownhill, who was heavily linked to Wolves, Saudi come in, you're not saying no to that, especially at his age, 29 years old, 100k a week reported. You're not saying no, are you? So it's a pretty easy decision. But I do think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Strand Larsen moving forward, given the fact that he is going to extend his contract on what you'd like to think would be better terms, as reported on about 12 grand a week, which I'm not sure how true that can be personally, but if that is the case, then he obviously should be getting paid a lot more for a 14-goal Premier League a season striker, shouldn't he? Do you know what I mean? So generally, as a deal for both parties, well, for all parties, there's more than 2 parties involved in this, of course, I think it makes complete sense. Now, in terms of the Nuno stuff, as I say, this is a very impromptu vlog, so I haven't done many of these, but if you do enjoy them, quick roundup on the way to work, then feel free. But I do think it's very interesting, Nuno leaving. I think we all knew or had an inkling that he would leave. Obviously, similar. I mean, I don't think you could have worked for 3 worse hierarchies, to be honest. Mr. Marinakis, Daniel Levy, Jeff Shee. That is like, what's an analogy we can use? I don't really know. But it's like, practically, it's like giving you an option whether you want to get shot, get stabbed, or get run over, and that's going to be your death. Any of them 3, you're not taking them, are you? But Nuno has taken them. Didn't work out at Spurs. Did work out at Wolves, of course. No one's saying that it wasn't a success at Wolves, but the end, the way it ended, the manner it ended in, yeah, it wasn't great. And then, of course, Forest ended really poorly. Now, with the Forest stuff, I think it's really interesting. It looks like Edu is the reason that Nuno has decided to ultimately leave. Now, of course, the hierarchy was different until Edu came in. Edu came in, pretty sure it was at the start of the season, or at the end of last season. Pretty sure it was the start of the season, though. And obviously, he comes in, and in terms of like a sporting director and stuff like that, I think he wants to have a lot of the power, and that was abundantly clear at Arsenal as well with Mikel Arteta. But them two sort of aligned on a lot of their values, so what they wanted from the team, what they wanted from individuals they were bringing in, and generally their sporting project, you know, it felt like they were always sort of, you know, in tune with each other. But evidently Nuno isn't in tune with Edu, which I think is interesting, because realistically, you know, it seems like it's coming from, well, not necessarily all come from, but he did want to bring Adama Traore in to Forest, which, say what you like about that one. I know you Wolves fans have an opinion on that, but I don't think that's a great decision from Nuno, if I'm being completely honest. But equally, that's what Edu's in the job for, to get recruitment right and bring in the players that he believes would fit the ethos at Forest and fit the side better tactically. And I think Ndoye probably does fit better than Adama Traore, a lot better personally. But I don't think it's all come from that, but I do think that's played a part, and we've seen Alex Crook and Ben Jacobs confirm that that was one of the factors in terms of the friction caused between Nuno and Edu and the hierarchy at Nottingham Forest as well. So it's a bit of a mad one, if you're asking me, but it is what it is, and he's now left the club, and Forest are in a very precarious position, I'd say, a strange position. You know, they've got a lot of players that Nuno would have liked, a lot of players that Nuno did like, and I think if you're Morgan Gibbs-White, you're looking at that thinking, why have I not gone to Spurs there? Oh yeah, I've been held hostage. No, but seriously, from a Morgan Gibbs-White perspective, you know, I think he was one of the things that, you know, probably kept him extending at Forest, was that sort of bond that he had with Nuno. I think that was a big factor, and they've got on like a house on fire, obviously, again, and they've done really well together, achieved a lot of things at Nottingham Forest. But for Morgan Gibbs-White, it must be a very, very strange situation to be in, given the fact that he should have left for Spurs, was going to leave for Spurs, and then Mr. Marinakis has done whatever he's done. But I do think it makes for a really interesting season for Forest now. What happens with the expectations? Do Forest, you know, settle for top 6? Do they just go for the Europa? What do they possibly do going into the season? I think it's a really interesting one, and you Wolves fans have to let me know what you think about that as well. But the final thing I want to touch on is I've seen people saying that Nuno should come back. Now, of course, everyone does that when Nuno's out of a job, and everyone loves Nuno. I think that's probably because of the situation Wolves are currently in. I hope you can hear me, because I'm right by the road. But I think that's probably because of the situation Wolves find themselves in at the moment, with the severe sort of lack of quality on the pitch, and the way that it's, you know, things have been playing out this season, pre-season, stuff like that. I think that plays a part in it. But also, Nuno would be, I would absolutely love to see Nuno back at Molineux. Absolutely would love to see that. I don't see it happening. Would love to, but don't see it happening, given the fact that, again, Jeff Shee's still at the club. So I don't think there's a world where Nuno comes back, first of all, for them to bring him back, second of all, for him to want to come back and work under Fosun and Jeff Shea again, to be quite honest. But I'd love to see it happen. Obviously, people shouldn't down tools on Vitor Pereira. I'm not suggesting that. Personally, I'm not against him, but I've also been concerned about a lot of his decision making in the last few months, really, whether it regards to sort of deals, players that he's wanted, or tactically. You know, towards the end of last season, Wolves tailed off, and then this season's been dire. So don't get me wrong, I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility, but for me, I just don't see Nuno doing that for, you know, doing him a favour, really, doing Fosun and Shea a favour, because he would be. There's plenty of clubs that would love to go and get Nuno Espírito Santo. They just would, especially in Wolves' position. Getting Nuno would be a massive coup again, and it would be such a brilliant story. But we'll have to see what happens with Vitor Pereira, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well, because I know most of you will be against it, probably, but it's a talking point nonetheless. Obviously, with Nuno leaving, it's a very interesting one at that. So if you have enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, let me know what you think about all the news with regards to Strand Larsen and Nuno Espírito Santo, and I'll see you in the next one.